Welcome to my channel. My name is Sumaya, and today I have my lovely mum and business partner, and we're going to do a Q&A. I did put on my social media and on her social media as well what questions that you guys wanted to know about us, and so I got a few and I will be asking them. So yeah, introduce yourself.
Well, thank you, Sumaya. It's lovely to be here with my daughter and to be here with you incredible fans. It is really a pleasure to have people out there rooting for us and supporting. We feel your support. So I really feel the vibe of excitement, and really looking forward to answer these beautiful questions that were posed on social media, and to know that there is a community out there that can ask us these questions that we can have an interaction with. So I'm happy to be in this space. Thank you for having us. Thank you for having me.
And your name?
I did say my name was Mariam Issa.
Okay. I don't think you did.
Okay. Yeah. I did get to the heart of the matters straight away.
Yes, without even giving us your name.
Yeah. Okay.
The questions will be, some were directed at me and some were directed at Mum, and there's some that we can both answer. So the first question is, are you the only child? Well, in my heart, yes. But reality, no, I am one of 5. I am the middle child, so there was a lot of times when I used to think, wow, it would be so nice to be an only child, and it was in my dreams a lot. But now that I'm an adult and we've all grown up, it's just, I do like that I'm not an only child. Plus, if I did something wrong, like take someone's chocolate, there's 4 other people to blame. So that was also good. A question for both of us. What do you love most about working together? I'll let you start with that.
What I love most is we bring 2 different strengths to our business. And I love the fact that she can deal with the things that I don't like dealing with. For instance, what we're doing now, the social media part, I don't have to edit this video, so I can just come here and talk, and she does the background work. And the fact that I'm working with my daughter gives me an immense pleasure. I know it's not always easy, but I think it gives me a lot of satisfaction that we're 2 very strong women who can bring incredible things to the table. And the fact that we're storytellers, we share these stories to inspire. So our work comes from a place of unlocking potential and inspiring others, and it's really it's work that I enjoy. So I enjoy doing it with my daughter.
Me, eldest. Her favorite daughter.
Well,
no, we know.
If you ask the others,
I'm the favorite. Anyway, what I love most about working with Hoyo which means mother in Somali, when I started, I had a lot of social anxiety, so me dealing with someone else would have been a lot harder than it is me dealing with my mum, because I can say what I need to say without worrying. And so I found my confidence that way. So now if I did go out into the world, I would be able to voice my opinions a lot easier than I would have in the past. Question number 3, which is directed at me. Do you tell your mum everything? No, only because, in all honesty, everyone has secrets. But for me, it's not that I'm not going to tell her because I might get in trouble, or it's not something that I feel comfortable sharing with her. It's none of that. It's mostly, a lot of the times I'm at home. I don't do a lot, so there's not a lot to tell. But also, it's mainly, I keep things to myself. It's my personality. I'm not very open regardless. So I'm not hiding anything worthwhile from you. Don't worry.
I know when you are. So I do
Okay.
take her out of her comfort zone and probe at times, but yeah.
Yeah. So much out of my comfort zone. So this is for you. How did you cope with parenting and the culture shock of a new country and leaving family behind?
Wow, that's a big one. It was really hard in the beginning, and so much harder, especially when you come from a communal culture and come into an individual culture where you just have to do things most of the time by yourself. And to start over again, actually, to start over finding friends, to start over finding people that you can trust again. So it was not easy. And then also the burden that comes with that is the difference of the two cultures. So I most of the times found myself to be between a rock and a hard place. But I think those things kind of push us for growth. And I am a big resistor. I would resist a lot of something that I don't know. But over times, I have accepted to learn. I became actually curious about my fears. And whatever I was afraid of, I would really look at and see where that fear was coming from. And it helped me sort things out. And I learned to really take the gems of both cultures and then weave it together to be my own. In that, I will tell you a little story that my mom used to share with us. And she was a weaver and weaved mats and baskets. And whenever she was weaving a new mat, she would say, it's a good idea to weave a new mat when you're sitting on your old one, because that way you see the patterns and the mistakes that you have made in your old one, and in that you will adjust the new mat. But she would add with a caution, she would say, be careful, remember, she would say, that you are the one who is creating in this present moment. So don't be taken too far out by your mistakes and the patterns that you want to recreate, to adjust or recreate. So I found that to be a very true, beautiful analogy for using in life. So now when I am creating something new, that comes into mind, and I use that analogy to, to create my world. I always remember that I am here in the present moment, and I can create from this place.
Sure. I mean, that also resonates with when I'm drawing something. I'll see the old drawing, and then I'll focus too much on the mistakes that I made in that one, and then the new piece won't be as good because I wasn't focusing on the overall aesthetic. I was just focusing on the mistakes from the previous one.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a good analogy. This one is directed at me. What do you do when you're not recording a video? I have not done this for like a year. I am trying to be more consistent this year, but mainly it's work. I am building a social life hesitantly because I love making plans, but then when it comes to the day of the plan, I'll be like, really, do I really have to go? Like, can I cancel? I'm hoping, can they cancel? But yeah, I want to build this business that we have together, and I mean, I can do that while doing this as well. So I don't do much at all. It's just I was very lazy when it came to this. How do you, this one's directed to the both of us. How do you find balance of keeping the Somali culture while trying to fit into a society that's completely different without losing who you are?
A good question, a great question actually. There is a term that we put for our Somalis, and we say Somalinimo. So how do you cope with your Somalinimo is, I think I love a lot of things from my culture, and I love a lot of things from the Western culture. And the term, what I learned actually in my integration phase is that in the communal culture, you can ask for support. You're surrounded by people who can actually, tell you what is wrong and can not walk on eggshells and just,
Afraid to approach
afraid
people.
and just tell it as it is. Our Somali Nimo calls for that. You're being told, get out of your comfort zone. This is who you are. And I love that about our culture, and it's something that I have kept along the way. I don't like something that is not authentic. I love people to be very authentic with me. I'm truly authentic with, most of the times I'm authentic with people. I love to be told when I am out of, my league, for like if I do some mistakes, to be told as it is. So that's one of the things. But what to get the balance in everything, I think, is to realize that you have to be you are on a scale most of the times, and it's just to come to the center of that scale and to balance things off. And in that, you need to have introspective side, and that's what I do really well. I love being introspective. I love walking in nature. I do a lot of gardening. As I don't know if you know this, but we have a big garden in our backyard. It's a space that we've opened for community. So I use that garden, and I use gardening for my meditative purposes. But I'm a woman of faith as well. I pray a lot, and I consult God and sit in my discomfort and listen. And so that gives me the balance that I need in my life, in my work, in my relationships. So I think to have that spiritual, contemplative side is really important.
For me, it was hard growing up as a teenager because I want to be one way at home and then another way at school. Like, I can't be the same way I am at school with my friends here. And it was hard then, but growing up, I realized that I don't need to be fully into the Western culture. And I can look at both cultures and say, this is what I like about my culture, and these are the things that I don't like. And I can get rid of the things that I don't like, and then use only the things that I like. And also, there are things in a part of the Western culture that I do like, and I kind of just take what I like from different cultures and then put them together. And I mean, from the Somali culture, it's all about, like, they're very big on family, and that support system of the community is there. It's very present. The saying it how it is, they go a bit too far sometimes. And so that's like too confronting for me, so I wouldn't do that. But when we went to Uganda and Kenya to visit family in 2015, and that was like the first time I've been since like my sister was born. And she was, I think, how old? She was like 18 or something at the time. Yeah. And we went back, and so I noticed everyone coming together, the whole family, and just how supportive everyone was of each other and stuff. But sometimes I felt like, okay, everyone's too much in their in everyone's business, because I had people like,
that's the love and the
luxury. I know, I get it, but like it's a bit too much. It's
part of the drama of life, and
exactly,
and connections.
But I like drama that I'm not in, so I'd rather watch it from afar. And so I had like people that, I just met, like I met a cousin who's much older than me, and like he was giving me like, yes, life advice, but like telling me to do it. And so it wasn't more advice, it was more, this is what you need to do.
An order, yeah.
And so I was just like, yeah, no, that's a good idea, yeah, cool. But like, obviously, like, we're worlds apart, so of course he's not gonna check in. But yeah, so things like that, like it would go a bit too far, I would kind of tone it back. And so the Western culture is very individualistic, and even though I do like my alone time, I'm not like that. Like, I do like when family come together and just, and also to be there for each other. Like, if I need someone like my siblings, I need that.
And I think also I still do that at a very young age. Like, we used to have Zap every Saturday. Like, we would invite the family. We've got about 3 or 4 families around us. And so we happened to be very lucky because you had your...
We did have family close
yeah,
by, like my dad's side of the family.
Yeah, so I think, just instilling that and bringing the family together and having these meals, I think really connected us in bigger ways. And one of, we use that actually in our activism, in our not-for-profit organization as well. In my backyard, we have a pavilion where we invite people for cooking classes, and we carry out these activities of gardening and storytelling and cooking. And so that I use that as a form of activism, but also as a way of creating the world that I want to be part of, the world that we are all calling for, that calls for connection. And I think it's just really important to have those deep connections. And family, I feel, is what actually our organization has taught us, and doing this in our backyard, is that family is beyond blood relations. There are people that you connect with, and you might not have necessarily known them before, but once you're connected, they become like family to you and support you in ways that are immeasurable and immense. So we've learned so much.
And I'm about to lose my Somali card, but I hated Zubs. I hated Zubs. I hated the bris. I hated... What hilib did you use?
Lamb, yeah.
I hated that too.
Yeah.
So,
which is the best in Australia if you're watching overseas. You know, we have the best lamb here. And I don't know why she would hate that.
No, I didn't like it.
And anyway, one of my girls is also vegetarian, so they're not very...
I mean, she wasn't vegetarian back then. I'm not a big fan of red meat anyway. But wasn't a fan. Whenever, like, I'm happy that family's coming together, but whenever the word zup was mentioned, I was triggered.
Because there was a lot of cleaning afterwards.
And it was me.
Yeah.
So, for the next question, is also for the both of us. What advice would you have about speaking up about your past experiences, from being refugees to business owners, and the challenges and the obstacles you both overcame?
I love to coach. I don't like advice, and I actually don't like that term, advice. I love people. We all have innately what we need, and it's inbuilt. And what I love to do with people is challenge them to bring that innate power and potential alive. And so what I would...
Advice?
Yeah, what I would suggest. No, not advice.
Suggest. I know you hate it. I just said it because you hate it.
Yeah, what I would suggest is to push yourself to get out of your comfort zone. You know, grow, and have an open mind. Be curious about the world. Be in wonderment. I mean, there are so many incredible mysteries that are around us. And once you start on that tangent of curiosity, you will learn so much, and your mind will expand. It scares you. It will not always be in your favor. You will make mistakes, but don't be afraid to make those mistakes, and don't be afraid of failures. I think failure is one of the overrated fears in our world. So you've come into this physical plane to have an experience and have those experiences. I mean, I don't know if I should say my age in this video, in this world of if it's fine. You know,
it's fine.
Yeah, I'm 51 years old, but I challenge my daughters and my young adult children, all of them. I have 5 of them, and I challenge them to be the best they can be by being that example. I don't tell them to do something that I'm not doing. So I think if you know, when you're following our work, you follow me on social media, I do a lot of work, and I get this energy from loving what I do, because I work like, I'll tell you a story of the bee that just, I'm a gardener, so I will always bring analogies and parables, and as also a gardener and a storyteller. So The parable of the bee is that the bee finds the most beautiful flowers and it sucks on the nectar of those flowers without even actually disturbing the flower itself. And while it's doing that, it also pollinates our crops, and that's how we have different kinds of crops. And we have it actually supports our food system. And the amazing thing is the bee has only 3 months to live, but it doesn't ever wake up and says, oh, I have only 3 months to live, what should I do today? It exactly knows what it needs to do that day. So be like that, wake up every morning and just believe that that's your day, that's all you have. It might be your last day, you never know. So love what you do. And
so
go
the
out
challenges
there.
and obstacles that you went through to get to where you are today, like what kind of obstacles were there?
Oh, the obstacles were immense. Some of them were the fact that I was a Somali woman, a stay-home mom all my life. So coming into this space where I could look outside of myself and see incredible, at the time I would look at women who were performing in the field of any field, like they were the doctors that I would visit or the teachers of my children, of the community organizations, and they were doing a lot of things that I thought I would never ever be able to do those things. I challenged myself to the extent that now I sit on boards that are one of the, with corporate women, and I interact with them on my level of, of understanding of the world. And I have brought my cultural identity, my ways of, my learnings, the experiences, my life experiences into these platforms to affect change. And I do it unapologetically. And I became a leader by default. You never ever go out there and ask people to become a leader. I'm not a politician leader, but people call me a community leader. They call me a leader in so many different aspects, but it's not something that I went out there to become. It just happened randomly while I was doing what I love.
For me, the advice you hate the word advice, I don't. So I will use it. I guess you have to be...
I don't hate it. Hate is a strong word.
Okay, dislike.
I just dislike it.
You have to be... I guess you have to learn to get comfortable with being vulnerable. Because the stories that I tell of my past are pretty vulnerable stories. It's just you have to learn to separate yourself from what happened and who you are today. Because I was a child then and I went through a lot, but that only made me who I am today. So I don't think about it and go, wow, my life was terrible. Wow, I'm just so sad. Woe is me. No, I don't think like that, because now I wouldn't be here today if I didn't go through all those things.
Yeah.
The obstacles, one of my biggest obstacles, of course, was my social anxiety that I did. And I have a video about this on my channel that I did go through, and it was something that I didn't know I had until I was an adult, and it's something that I'm still working through, and it was obviously the biggest thing that was an issue for me because I can't face people, especially one-on-one. For me, I found it easier speaking in front of people than I do one-on-one. It's very hard for me to maintain eye contact. Because I don't know, I feel some type of way about it and I feel like I'm being judged. And so that's something that I'm working through every day when I meet new people. Just keep eye contact. Don't be creepy and stare at them, but keep normal eye contact. And so far I'm doing well.
Yeah. But I think, the obstacles usually are sorting out your story and just saying...
You are your biggest obstacle.
Yeah, you are your biggest obstacle. And I think it's just this is my story. And differentiating the now and the future. There are future aspirations, but where am I right now? and starting from there. Sometimes we go into the way ahead of ourselves, or sometimes we go way back into, you know, our past. So just being in that space of the present moment and defining your story as you go, because you will always be creating a new you, and you will always be, you know, becoming. You are never stagnant. So allow that and let go of resistance. I think one of the hardest things
is to not resist.
Yeah.
That's true. For our last question, how would you advise other mother-daughter business duos or families working together in general? Do's and don'ts. Number one, boundaries. Boundaries are so important because you have those boundaries already set with co-workers and people like your boss at work. But those boundaries aren't within family, or they can be pushed like really far. And so also another thing that I keep talking to my mum about, because we're both very different in how we work. And my mum's always got ideas. She's always got something running through her head, and she's like excited. She wants to talk about it. And I'm like, nope, business hours. I'm chilling here watching Netflix. Do not come to me with this sort of stuff. Write it down. We will talk about it in the business hours. And so that's for me one of my boundaries. Like when I'm not in my work mode, I'm not talking about work. I'm not interested. But I think Hoa is just always switched on. And so I guess working through that for us is...
I'm not always switched on. We have different times.
She's always switched on.
We've got different times of switched on. I'm a morning person. She's an evening person. And that clashes. But I think it's just with trial and error. And not all mother duo are the same. I think just looking at your strengths, what works for you. And I think keeping to your lane. Sometimes we look at other people, other things that are happening outside of us, and we lose track of our vision. And I think it's just bringing it back to what do we want to create, and
when do we want to create it in business hours?
Business hours. And so easily said than done. So practice is one of the hardest things. I think this is all we're talking now, but to put these things into action, that is one of the hardest things.
Because we started our company like a year ago, and it's still like we still are like there's still boundaries being crossed on both sides, but it's every day. Like you're gonna keep, it's a work in progress. Because I know that sometimes I'll wake up and then, because Hoa wakes up at 4 a.m. No one does that. That's not normal. And so for a while, she'll be like, yeah, I've got this idea. She'll be like moving.
I do write it down. Now I'm learning to write them down. And it's true. I am all over the place with my ideas. Concentration is one of my hardest things, to just concentrate on one lane. And I think that's who I am. I can do so many different things at once. At once, and that's how I've really progressed. But she's like, let's keep to this, which is good, and it gives the direction, it gives it momentum for what we're doing at that time. And I think
it's not just like your it's not just that you didn't have you can't concentrate. It's more like you've been up already stewing all these ideas, and then I'll wake up just to say good morning, and she'll be like, come sit, let's talk about this. And I'm like, I just woke up, you need to calm down. And so I guess we are working through that, and it's going to be a work in progress for a long while. There's no such thing as perfection, so we're not aiming for perfection. But when I say not now, it's not business hours, like she'll be like, okay. So, and she's learning to write things down, and so that's good. And so those were our questions. I didn't want this video to be super long, so I just picked 8 really good questions. I don't know if we said what we do. So we did start a company. It is a storytelling company, and we are speakers. And so I go into schools and talk about the effects of bullying and my story as a refugee, and so that's where I have to be vulnerable. But also while I do talk about what happens and the sadness of it or whatever, it's also very important to talk about okay, this isn't the end all be all. It's, okay, so this is what's going on. This is how I've overcome it. Here are some other like tips to maybe spot what's going on, things that I would have loved for people to have done for me while I was in that space. And so just kind of, and also talking to the teachers, because the teachers weren't innocent in what I went through. And so just kind of giving them an idea of how it is and what they can look at.
So I also am a speaker and a keynote, so I do a lot of interstate traveling and I do conferences, and my speaking is usually themed with themes like courage and resilience and sharing my stories. So I do believe that the stories are really powerful and they create they humanize us and they allow us to really bring together the connectedness, like how we want to create a world of connectedness, just like what we're doing here, sharing our stories with you. And I think what we call ourselves as story inspirers, we would love our stories to inspire other people.
Intergenerational
story inspirers, because we're two different generations. And I've learned over the years that there is always a gap and that needs to be filled, that intersection, and we need to come to that intersection and be able to tell these stories or to connect through these stories and to bridge that gap that exists for us. So thank you so much for listening to us and for supporting us with our work,
just everything.
And
so I will put social media, and also she wrote a book. I'm an author. My book is called A Resilient Life. I talk about my experiences as a refugee, but as a new community member in the world that I live in now. I live in a suburb called Brighton East in Melbourne, and it's a beautiful suburb. It's where my community is now, and we love it here. And if you get a chance, read my book. It's a really simple read, and it's one that I invite people to really own their stories, because that's where our power is, to design your destiny and to celebrate life. And it is on Amazon, so I will put the link in the description bar. So it's an ebook and a paperback, so whichever you're good with. So thank you for watching, and like and subscribe, and I'll have you on here more.